Kino pavasaris. Kovo 18, balandžio 5 dienomis visoje Lietuvoje. Didysis partneris Ergo draudimo grupė. Informaciniai partneriai TV3, 15 min, žmonės.
Mūsų karta pirmoji supratusi, kaip iš lėto kenkiame gamtai. Ir vienintelė, žinanti, kad dar yra laiko ją išsaugoti. Apsaugokime mūsų visų ateitį. Ergo.
Geriausius kino pavasario filmus parodys žiūrimiausia televizija TV3. Šeštadieniais 22:40.
Festivalis Kino pavasaris jūsų namuose. Visus filmus žiūrėkite Telia televizijoje jums patogiu metu. Telia. Įdomiau tik gyvenimas.
The laws of physics. The laws of life. Laws connect everything. We think that to be legal advisors, we must live under the same philosophy. Adapting to connect and connecting to adapt.
Hello everybody, labas. Welcome to Kino Pavasaris, and welcome to our live Q&A for Berlin Alexanderplatz. My name is Andrejus Tănăsescu. I'm one of the programmers, and I'm extremely delighted to be here moderating this live Q&A with the film's director, Burhan Qurbani. Burhan, hello.
Hi.
Once again, thank you. And speaking of hello to Vilnius, I would just like to quickly remind everybody watching this that as this is a live Q&A, we'll be waiting for your questions. Feel free to just write them into to our comments box. Berlin Alexanderplatz. It's a film that had its world premiere a year ago at last year's Berlinale Film Festival in its official competition. Ever since its world premiere, it played a long list of film festivals. It garnered 13 awards, including the Eurimage Award in Rotterdam. It's also one of our festival favorites. It's playing as part of our Critics' Choice program, and it is one of my personal favorite films of the festival, and I can speak for the whole team that is also one of their favorites. Burhan, congratulations, first of all, on the movie.
Thank you so much. It means a lot. It really means a lot to me. Thank you.
And I would like to begin by, of course, opening up the conversation with its source material, namely Alfredo Döblino's novel, which is a crucial novel to German literature. It's been adapted twice before. And I think, and with this film, I think you definitely proved that it needed a contemporary adaptation. And I would like to first start by asking you, actually, what drew you to the novel, and what kind of, what was the creative spark that it ignited in you to make this film?
So I grew up with the book. I read it in high school when I was in my teens, and I didn't understand it at all. I didn't succeed to conquer it as a piece of literature. And only much later, when I moved to Berlin and I settled my life here, and I took the book and read it again, I started to realize what an amazing piece of literature it is. And I never thought about making a movie about it. Like the ghost of Rainer Werner Fassbinder and his series was hanging above the project in a way that why would you do it? It's just stupid. It's stupid also as a filmmaker, because it's like career suicide in a way. And the initial spark, the initial idea to take that project on had more to do with the community that is in the center of our film, which is the community of Black drug dealers in Berlin. And that I wanted to make a movie about them. I wanted to give them a voice, a face, and I had the feeling that especially in Germany, when you make a film about the Black community, it gets ignored. So the thought was, is there a possibility, is there a key in the narrative that makes it impossible to be ignored? And at that time I was living in close to Hasenheide, which is the park, which is also one of the main locations in the movie. And I saw these boys, and I was walking through this park, and I found that there were parallels between the novel that was somewhere in my subconsciousness, and between the novel and the situation of these boys in this park. And so step by step, I found more and more similarities. And then at a certain point, I went to my producers and asked, like, let's see if the rights are available. And they actually were available, and we contacted Stefan Döblino, the son of Alfred, who is still alive, and asked him for the rights. And I don't know why, but he gave us the rights. And so we started working on the project almost 8 years ago.
And 8 years ago, can you actually walk us a bit through the process of adapting the book? And because I can imagine it must have been a big challenge to, on one hand, stay true to the spirit of the novel, and what it represents for a lot of German audiences, and not just those, but international people, and to make it come to life with such an urgent kind of contemporary vitality.
So, I mean, the original novel plays in the 1930s or 1920s, actually. And so in the middle of the Weimar Republic, but almost at the end of the Republic, so you could already feel the Nazi regime coming up. And it's basically the story of a small-time criminal who comes from First World War, who's traumatized, and who tries to make his life in Berlin, and tries to get from the mud of society into the middle of society. So Berlin, Alexanderplatz, the name of the novel is not because of the location, Alexanderplatz, but because the location is in the middle of Berlin, which is in the middle of Germany, which is in the middle of Europe. So that was like the core idea for us, was to tell the story of somebody who tries from the mud of the society, from the outskirts of the city, to get into the center of society, to the center of the city. And so the beginning of, I think, every adaptation is deconstruction. So you take a huge sledgehammer and you kind of, you hit the novel as hard as you can, so that it kind of separates in all its pieces. And then you have to figure out what can you use and what can't you film. Fassbinder took over 14 hours to make his series, and we knew that we wouldn't make a series, but a feature film. So how can we put this novel into feature length? And so we ripped the novel apart and realized, okay, between all these amazing layers of literature, of language, and of ingenuity, there is the story of Francis, Reinhold, and Mieze. That's this ménage à trois that leads us to the story. And that is something that we can work with. And unfortunately, everything else, there are so many ideas of Döblino which are embedded into the novel, had to die. They just had to go. And that was the very beginning. And then we had this amazing luck. We were invited to the Torino Film Lab, where we had Răzvan Radulescu as an editor who was with us for 10 months to develop a script. He's famous for 4 weeks, 3 months, 3 weeks.
4 months, 2 days, and The Death of Mr. Lazarescu. Yeah, he's a phenomenal scriptwriter.
He's a genius, and he was with us for 10 months to kind of build the base of what the film would be. And when you start with deconstruction, then you build a skeleton, and then you try to give the skeleton muscles, and you try to give them fat and fibers and so on. And so you reclaim stuff that you've thrown out, and then you have a script, and you work over it and over it and over it. And so it took us almost 3 years just to kind of nail the script to a point that we could say we're ready to finance it now.
I want to ask you, and I think this is an equally important question, about the faces I mean, you break it down, you put muscle, you put skin, you put the faces in the film. And what I mean by this is the casting. Because the ménage à trois that you described is incredibly performed, let's say, by Francis Weinhold, Mitte. Velke Bungwe is, I mean, he's this kind of,
he's a god.
Beautiful, yeah, exactly. I mean, statuesque, kind of like a god. And then you have Reinhold, who is this almost like a jester, but almost at the same time, a complete devil. And Mitte, who is very smartly cast as both angelic, but at the same time, she is a full-on empowered woman. Long story short, casting was essential to this film. So please tell us how you kind of clinched on to these actors.
For me, the first choice in the film was Jella Hase, who plays Mieze. She's kind of well known in Germany, but especially for being an amazing comedian. So she had a lot of success with funny movies. But I saw her in the beginning of her career when she was still doing like very harsh art house movies, and I loved her, and I always wanted to work with her, but we never managed to come together. So I basically casted her blindly because I just wanted to work with her. And because she is always between innocence and she also has this diabolic or very, very harsh demeanor in her character. And I found it very interesting. The second choice was for Albrecht Schuch, who plays Reinhold, and he was known at that time, but he was not doing a lot of cinema, but much more like TV. And I saw him in the role of a like right-wing terrorist, and I was mind blown. There was something so dark inside of him, and I invited him to the casting, and we really tried so hard to like each other, but we kind of didn't manage. And the casting was amazing, but personally we were struggling so hard to get to, like become friends. But I can say eventually it worked, but in the beginning it was really something that stood between us. And I think it was only the casting of Velket who kind of not only completed the cast, but who also, he was the connecting tissue for all of us, not only on a professional, but also on a personal level. And to cast Velket was a journey in itself. We were casting for him for over 2 years because we knew the film stands or falls with the main character, with Francis. And so we really casted everybody in Germany. Then we went to France, we went to Benelux, we went to England. We even flew in an actor from South Africa because we were so desperate that we wouldn't find this one person. And then by chance, Velket had a movie in competition, Berlinale in 2017. It's a Brazilian movie called Joaquim. And my casting director, Susanne Marquardt, she saw the movie and she said, "Burhan, that is our guy. You have to invite him." I was like, "No, he's just not the right character. In the novel, the guy is 40 years old. He's rough. He's fat. He's like not a very pleasant human being. And Velket is just like, he's charismatic, intelligent, beautiful. He's everything he shouldn't be." But nonetheless, my casting director, she forced me to invite him, and which is this is like the great thing. If you have a good team, they put you out of your comfort zone, and then they show you some amazing stuff. And what happened was, the moment that Albrecht and Velket started to work together, it was magical. You could see you could feel the energy between them, and it was, both of them fell in love with each other immediately. And I think that was also the moment, the tipping point for me, first to say yes to Velket as an actor, but also to find a common language with Albrecht. So this was like, I think film can be like a very complicated social endeavor, with all the weird characters that you're working with in your team. but yeah,
this word team, I think it's really essential to the movie. I mean, granted, you feel a total auteur vision that, you know, that is embedded in every fabric of the movie, but you had a great team behind you, and not just the actors, but also cinematography, the music. And I should also bring up art direction. I mean, the mise en scène is. First, can you talk to us about how you envisioned the whole film, stylistically, but also in terms of its kind of rhythm and energy, and then if you can kind of speak it to the other, you know, all the other parts that combined into it.
So first I have to say that I have this privilege that I work with family. I work with the same people for the last 10 years, with the same DP, producers and heads of department. And to develop an idea with family is always very pleasant, because you don't have to make such an elaborate story about what you want. It's a lot of things happen by intuition, because you work with people that you know so well. But I think what we, as a team, what our feeling was after our last movie, which was in black and white and was like this very art housey, very laid back kind of movie, and wanted to do something completely different. And I started with collecting photos, like on the internet, on art and film blogs on Instagram, and I just made a huge collection of images that I found intriguing and interesting. And I think it was like 4,000 photos. I gave it to my DP, to my cameraman Yoshi, and he basically brought like the stylistic order into it. And from that point on, we could say like, okay, this is what we want, and this is like the direction that we want to go to. And of course, neon light is always very sexy, but we felt that it was a way to represent not only Berlin as a city and as this urban moloch, but also to reflect the inner world of Francis. So and from that moment on, we bring in the other heads of department, and we start to exchange ideas, talk a lot about what we want to tell and what we think that our visuals can do for the characters and for the story. And I think I'm a bit proud of, without putting myself too important, but I'm very proud of having found Dasha, our musician. I was at that time in 2018 or 17. I was teaching in film school in Berlin, and I had this film student Dasha, and she was like 28, 29, and I was just struck by her talent and by the music that she was doing, and I convinced my producers that she would be able to carry that project, and she amazingly did. And and right now her career is going like completely crazy. It's insane what she's doing, but she really gave, I mean, next to the amazing visuals, she gave the film another protagonist with the music, and it's a blessing. And it's not me, it's her. I was just there by chance to see her and to cast her for our team. So,
but you know, music. One kind of feeling I had from after watching the film for the first time, and it lingered on, is, and I'm trying to say this with, you know, not to sound too pompous, but the whole film feels operatic. There's a certain kind of symphonic rise, not just to Francis's, you know, narrative arc, but to the world and to the forces of good and evil that you kind of, you know, combined in the film.
I'm so glad that you say that. Yeah.
No, I was going to say it's more of a comment, but if you can kind of speak to that kind of, you know, rush of narrative and stylistic force, perhaps.
The thing is that I'm permanently struck by imposter syndrome. I always think that what I achieved together with my people is that I'm the least important part in this whole thing. And but this epic quality, I'm not sure if it was in the script. There was, I mean, the script was long, and it was a journey, like an odyssey for Francis. But only in the time when we started to shoot, the vision really unfolded. I'm really envious of directors who have like a clear vision, and they go into the shoot and they know exactly like what images they want and how their edit will be. I don't believe that this is. I think it's more a cliche than truth. I think that the film happens when it happens. But I'm not one of those guys who can, you know, who go there with an epic vision and then they make the movie. I just make a movie, and then by chance it might even become a good one. But what happened during the editing process is I was not able to cut any scene, and my editor Philip was thereby was forced to find his own technique of putting the scenes together, like in a collage montage kind of way. And I think that the wideness and this narrative space that is opened happened in this process of not cutting stuff away, but cutting stuff together, and thereby creating a completely new cinematic world. And I remember we were in sound mixing when we realized for the first time this is not a film, it's an opera. It was the first time when we realized like the way how we instinctively mixed the music. Like I'm not sure if you how you listen to it, but you can hear every beat when the music starts, and you hear every beat when it stops. It's like an opera where you have like now starts the song and now it ends. And you have these 5 chapters, like the 5 acts of an opera, and it works. And we were like we realized it, and then we enforced it. Then we tried to make it to make the decisions even clearer, so that it would be very obviously a melodramatic opera.
And I would say that kind of elevation of cinematic force also happens because of the camera movement. I mean, it's just quickly the scenes of his baptism, for instance, with the roving kind of circular camera work, the heist scene, which could be considered as tricks, but all of these are almost kind of like forces of cinematic movement. They kind of take the story and propel them even further. Do you want to maybe talk a bit about the? Yeah.
So in our last movie, We Are Young, We Are Strong, we made a clear decision that the camera would be the gravitation point of the film. So all the characters are always drawn to the camera. They move towards the camera or around the camera, but the camera is a distinctive creature, and the actors and the scenes are constructed towards the camera. And this time we said, okay, we want the characters to be the gravitational point, especially Francis. So the camera is always drawn to him. And in this scene that you talked about, the baptism, he's almost like a spiral down, like a swirl, and the camera is like caught in the swirl and is moving around him. But I have to admit that the scene was improvised because we had a very clear mise en scene for that scene. We wanted to shoot it in various angles, and then the producer said we don't have time to do it. We don't we saw your floor plan, we know what you're planning for the scene, but we just don't have the time. So I had like an hour with my actors and with my DP to make a new concept, and then we found, like, I remembered an old game that we played in theater, where you make a circle of 1 square meter, and the whole scene has to happen in this square meter. And so we used that idea to develop the scene within 1 square meter, and the camera has to move around them. I love the scene. I think it's one of the best scenes in the film, but it was really more or less done by, not by mistake, but by force, by outside forces. So it was not really planned in that sense. As is so much in movies, like so many things in movies, they happen because you have to do it because you have no other choice. So you're kind of kicked into a certain direction.
Sure.
That sounds like I'm a terrible director and I'm not doing a lot on set. I mean, I spend a lot of time at the catering. I really do. I love set coffee, best in the world. It's I think it's what the great thing about first having great actors, but also having a team that knows you is you can improvise a lot and you can improvise quickly, because without talking too much, you can make decisions about, okay, what is important, what do we want to show, and what have we already shot, and how can we put it into our film. And if you have people around you that know you, then you can go like, okay, we do it like this, this, and this. We can build a quick setup, and so on and so on. And especially with this scene, there's so many things that are hidden in that. Like, for example, these two girls, they didn't really have a role, and they were like, after this first or second rehearsal, we realized they're floating. They don't really know what to do. So I remembered that one of the girls was playing in Macbeth, one of the three sisters. I'm not sure if you know the play, but there's three witches, and they meet in the beginning. And I asked them to memorize the text and just to play it as a satanic
ritual,
almost. Ritual, yes. So if you look at them, they're basically talking Shakespeare while the camera is surrounding them, and it's just fun to do this kind of stuff. It doesn't always work. Sometimes you just fuck up. There's one scene, we had one of maybe 3 scenes that we really kicked out, which I loved, where Francis and Reinhold are sitting together, listening to music, start to dance, and they have this really sweet moment of dancing in like completely stupid idiots who are dancing together but really enjoy each other's company. And we wanted to have the scene to show how good friends they actually are. But we fucked the scene up, we fucked it up, and we couldn't use it. It was just like, it looked so bad and it didn't have any flow. It was fun to shoot and we were super happy. But then in the editing room, it was just, no, we cannot do it. It's embarrassing. Let's kick it out of the film.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because actually I wanted to touch upon Francis and Reinhold. There's something really mesmerizing and I would say charismatic about their friendship. It's both manifest or perhaps represent this type of wounded masculinity, that is perhaps incomplete, and there's something that almost magnetic that always brings them together. But there's also something extremely tragic that is part of their union. Also, perhaps something homoerotic. I mean, there's Reinhold's, kind of inability to connect. Well, I mean, connect is a euphemism, to his sexuality. Do you want to perhaps talk a bit more about that dynamic in the film?
I mean, of course, there was a lot given from the novel. So even in the novel, these two characters, they are bound by fate, and their magnetism is toxic and aggressive and destructive. But in Döblino's novel, it's not psychological. He, as a writer, he never wanted to psychologize characters, and we had to find a way or an angle to make it believable and feelable. And I mean, the first thing, again, how I told you, is there was an immediate friendship between the two actors the moment when they met, and they felt very close, which helped a lot. But also we had to go deep into the characters and ask, like, okay, what is Francis' problem, or like how does he arrive in Germany? And very early we came to the point he arrives as somebody who's traumatized, who basically has PTSD. and he feels extremely guilty for something that he has done, and he's looking for somebody to punish him. And he finds this person in Reinhold, and Reinhold betrays him. He basically cuts off his arm. He takes the love of Francis' life, and only then, when Francis lost everything, he can say, "Stop! Stop! I suffered enough. I've done. I can forgive myself, and now it's over, and now I can start a new life." And although I think that Reinhold as a character seems to be a complete psychopath, we still tried to find an edge within him, like a vulnerability and a humanity that made believable why he's such a sadist and why he's so willing to torture. It's his inability to love. And I think that his envy for this couple, Reinhold and Franz and Mieze, and their ability to love is something that infuriates him, because it questions everything he is. And yeah, I'm not sure if I can explain every psychological step, but I think that that was our approach when we were working with a novel and when we started to rehearse.
I want to speak a bit more about the underlying kind of structural themes of the film. I mean, you brought up the Shakespearean kind of quote in the film, and actually, just before that, I should say there's a very smart insert that you put in when Reinhold and Francis first walk through the park, and a guy on a bicycle cuts them off. And I think it's Reinhold who says, "Hey, I'm walking here," which is a very nice throwback to Midnight Cowboy, and the kind of partnership between Dustin Hoffman and Jon Voight.
Yeah,
I don't know if you can maybe.
We stole, of course, we stole that from that film, because it was one of the first movies that we watched in our research, because the friendship, relationship, and dependency in Midnight Cowboy is very similar to what happens in our film. And I think Jon Voight was basically the raw model, maybe not so beautiful as he was in that time. And I mean, I think nowadays he's a complete Trump fan, whatever. Anyway, but yeah, there were a couple of movies that were with us all the time, and it was Midnight Cowboy, it was Scarface, of course, The Godfather, and I have to lie, there's a couple of other movies that we stole from without shame. I mean, I think that's it's okay to steal from the grandmasters. Just have to be honest about it. Yeah. But what I wanted to say is that I think that almost all my movies, even my short movies, are about men who fail in their roles. Like it's always about male characters who are in their own toxic caught up in their own toxic relationships and mindsets, and they devour themselves. It's something that now that I've made a couple of movies, I can look back and I realize, okay, this seems to be something, and maybe I need therapy, or maybe I just make a couple of more movies.
I think you should keep creating films, to be honest. It's but on that, I mean, granted, okay, you do borrow from landmarks of cinema, but you also inspired yourself, and I found a couple, they're underlying themes of Shakespearean and Faustian tragedy to the film, while of course at the same time creating like an urban gangster movie.
I mean, for example, so we realized we have a film consisting of different triangles. So you have the triangle, of course, in the very center between Reinhold, Mieze, and Franz. Then you have one between Eva, Bertha, and Franz. Then you have one between Franz, Reinhold, and Pumps, the gangster boss. And when we were casting Joachim, who plays this old gangster boss, we were talking a lot about King Lear, and I realized for myself that King Lear is maybe the best a narrative key that I can use to work with the actors and to give them some content. And so yes, there's at least 5 King Lear quotes in the movie. So when every now and then Reinhold and Joachim dropping some King Lear lines, and I don't know. Like I also have to admit that I am a huge Shakespeare fan, and right now I'm working on the adaptation of a Shakespeare play. So this is something that goes through my whole work. Like I love to take material from good old Billy Shakespeare, because yeah, he is the Homer of not of our time. I guess he's but I mean, he was fucking important. And
Well,
what you said about Faust, I have to say, maybe as a German, Faust is so deeply embedded into my like narrative DNA that I think if I used it, it was not conscious at all, not conscious at all. I mean, I understand if you say it, then of course I think of Faust and Mephisto and their relationship. But this is something, when you're from Germany, you grow up with it. It's from kindergarten. You know the story, and you don't even feel it, see it if you steal it.
I mean, there are also, you know, like archetypes for narrative structures at the same time as well. And I could also go on referencing, or rather pointing out references to, you know, biblical references in the film, like the Pietà.
Yeah.
You know, or also, and one. Sorry, go ahead.
The biblical references are embedded into the novel. That's something you have to understand, that Alfred Döblino, he was born and grew up as a Jew in Berlin, and in his late 30s, 40s, he became a Catholic Christian, and so he overflooded the novel with images from the Bible. I mean, we start the movie with the sacrifice of this bull, which takes a whole chapter in the novel, and which of course is it's a complete Christian archetype. You know, the sacrifice of the son, and so on and so on. Sorry, you were saying something.
No. I was just going to list more references, but rather than doing that, I would like to actually come back a bit to the present time, because, you know, granted, you know, what's really important for the film, I think, and for me personally, is the way that you've adapted the novel to present day, and in a way, I also see it as, and I just wrote it down right now, but it's almost like you're embedding the reality of immigrant life within the fabric of contemporary Germany and of Europe by utilizing, you know, a piece of literature that is canonical to German culture, and I find that extremely necessary, but also really, really powerful in the way that you've kind of done this sleight of hand, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I tried, like I think I wanted to use the novel as a vehicle to tell something about our times and about problems that are current right now. I mean, I could have done a period piece and told a story in the Weimar Republic, but then I think it would have been a metaphor for something completely different, much more about the rise of the right-wing people, the rise of Nazism and populism and so on. I think that at that time I was not really intrigued by that. For me, as I myself am a child of refugees, my parents fled from Afghanistan in the 80s, and I think this experience of losing your home, losing your language, losing your everyday life and confidence is something that is also an issue that I carry with me as a filmmaker. And my main character, he's basically stranded with nothing on the shores of a new world, and he tries to make his way in this society. And I think that's like one image that we also took from the novel is, in the beginning of the film, Francis is literally, he's impotent. He's not able. He doesn't have any power. He doesn't have language. He doesn't have confidence. And step by step in the film, he gets stronger and he gains confidence. But most of all, he gains language, and he's able to speak and to express himself. And I think that is the thing that makes it's the only thing that makes it possible to stop being a refugee and start being a citizen. You know?
And on that, I don't know if you know, but our theme for the festival is to act or to be, or to be or to act. And I think your film applies perfectly, almost to a T, to our theme. Not just for the existence of immigrant life, trying to kind of to exist in a foreign culture, but also to kind of fight that inner demon, or rather to kind of quote your film, when you want to be good in a world of evil.
This is something that came from Rajvan in the very beginning. He said, when you make a movie with a black main character and a white antagonist, you have to be aware that you're telling a post-colonial story. You cannot fight it. You have to see that you embed your story in a wider context, which is not only personal, but it's global. And we try to take it serious in the sense that the film is also a metaphor for the divide between the white world and the black world, the first world and the third world. And I love this moment when the dealers are in the park and suddenly the police comes and they're running away. And for me, this image of this man running away from the police is so much part of our of the imagery that we know from almost every border of Europe or of the US or of the so-called first world countries, that you have people who are looking for a better life and who are out of breath, who try to grasp some air and to claim their stake, just to realize that this promised world is not as good as they thought. And maybe this is the struggle between good and evil that we're talking about in the film. I'm not sure. Sometimes I realize I'm not as smart as my film is, and I try to explain stuff which you, as an audience, maybe already understood.
Well, No, come on. I would go for one myself, actually. But I want to go to our audience because one of the questions is from Erica, and she asks, and you have touched on this a bit, but perhaps you could expand a bit more. What does the film mean to you personally?
It's so hard. So thank you, Erica, for the question. It's so hard to say because I just turned 40, and this film took 8 years in the making. So it's almost a fourth of my life and a third of my adult life or conscious life that I spent thinking about this movie, working on this movie, and living with the consequences that this movie had. And I think many colleagues who work for TV or for streamers who make 1 or 2 movies a year, I think for them it's much easier to answer the question because they can pinpoint one moment or one theme of the film and say, okay, the film is about this, and that's what it means to me. And for me, it's when I watch the movie, I see like a whole part of my life, like in 3 hours. I see 3 relationships with girls that I completely fucked up. I see the times when we were traveling and trying to sell the movie and trying to finance it. I see all the up and downs of how how we tried to make it and how we finished it and so on and so on. And for me, it is it's really weird and it's maybe a bit romanticized, but I watch my friends doing amazing stuff. I'm like I feel proud and happy when I look at it, because I feel all the people behind it. So for me as a filmmaker, it's really hard to watch the film as a piece of cinema. For me, it's extremely personal. Yeah. I hope that answers the question. I'm not sure if it's a good answer. Yeah.
No, it definitely does. But I would like to end our Q&A by saying that I really hope that you would grab onto the hopefulness of the ending of the film, which is, after all of these trials and tribulations, there is the hope of a new life, or rather, perhaps a continuation of life, but through a new ray of hope. And believe me, it was definitely worth it, Burhan. The film, I mean.
The thing is, there's this eternal struggle that I have with the ending of the movie. That's the truth is, till the last day of editing, we edited for 8 months, and then we had a deadline, and we had to finish the editing process. Until the very last day, we had 2 endings. We had one where the one that you've seen, Francis comes out of jail, he meets his daughter, and in the end he's on Alexanderplatz, and you have this hopeful moment. But the other ending was much harsher. He comes out of the jail and he doesn't meet his daughter. He's alone with himself. He hears the sounds of the ocean, and in the moment of the crisis, we cut out and we're out of the movie. And I know, as a filmmaker, as a fan of art house cinema, as someone who knows like what kind of movies are going to Cannes or to Venice or to Berlinale, I knew that was the better ending. It was more elegant. It was more powerful. It was the better ending for the film. And then I was sitting with my team, and then one said, "But the ending that we have right now, it's such a middle finger to all the right-wing people, to all the people who are fighting against refugees and so on and so on. So it might not be the better ending, but it's the more important ending." And I didn't have any comment for that, so we kept with that. But I know it's not better. It's hopeful, and it's maybe a utopia, but. Yeah, and that's how we went.
I am in full agreement with your team, and believe me, for us, we definitely think it is a fitting ending, or rather, a good beginning, or a hopeful beginning to something else, something better.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Wow. Okay, so I see we've already gone way too long. I would just like to thank everybody that's been watching. I'd like to continue to invite you to attend our festival online. But more importantly, I would like to thank Burhan for spending your time with us, for sharing the film with us, and for giving us more insight into Berlin Alexanderplatz.
I thank you. Thank you for these great questions. And I didn't realize that we were over time. It was nice.
No. It's all good. Danke.
What is thank you in Lithuanian?
It's ačiū.
Ačiū. Ačiū.
Ciao. Bye.
Ciao. Thank you so much.
Hvor Vesten wilder Junge.
I was a refugee all of my life. I did what I have to do. Now I got a second chance. Ich will gut sein.
This one isn't for you. Not yet. Du willst etwas sein, das du nicht sein kannst. You want to be good in a world that is böse. Sei nicht dumm. Du hast Potenzial.
Es ist nicht leicht, sich dem Teufel zu entziehen, wenn man ihn einmal zu sich eingeladen hat.
Noch ein Wort und ich sprich dir den Hals.
Wir sind auf einer dunklen Allee gegangen. Aber Francis ging nicht wie wir die Straße entlang.
Zieh die scheiß Maske an! Ich meine doch nicht mit. Du tust, was ich dir sage.
Weißt du, was mein Geheimnis ist? Ich bin nicht aus Zucker. Ich bin aus Marmor. Liebe.
Liebe. Diese Leute, die sind nicht das Richtige für dich. Musst du mir mal vorstellen, ein Engel. Oder willst du dich von mir verstecken?
Wir sind zwei. Den einen, den ich so sehr liebe. Und einer, der alles kaputt macht. Der liebt mich nicht. Der liebt den Tod. Er wollte gut sein.
Polizei! Stehen bleiben!
Aber man hat ihn nicht gelassen.
Warum hast du mich hier mit reingezogen?
Um dir zu zeigen, wer du bist.